Why you feel lost even when life looks fine. From the outside, life can look stable. You are functioning. Responsibilities are handled. Progress appears visible. Nothing is obviously wrong. And yet something feels off. A quiet sense of disconnection. A lack of direction. A feeling that life is moving but not landing. Many people experience this without understanding why, because external stability does not guarantee internal clarity. Welcome to 10-Minute Books, where we explore the ideas behind the books that shape how we understand life, psychology, and meaning. Today we explore one powerful idea reflected across 3 influential works: Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, The Myth of Sisyphus by Albert Camus, and Stumbling on Happiness by Daniel Gilbert. Why you feel lost even when life looks fine. Viktor Frankl begins with a simple but profound insight. Human beings are not driven only by pleasure or success. They are driven by meaning. Frankl observed that people can endure immense suffering if they perceive purpose. But the opposite is also true. When life lacks meaning, even comfortable circumstances can feel empty. Feeling lost is often not a failure of progress. It is a failure of orientation. You may be moving forward, but not towards something that feels meaningful. Frankl suggests that meaning is not discovered passively. It is created through responsibility, through commitment, through choosing what something is for. When responsibility becomes unclear, direction weakens. And when direction weakens, the feeling of being lost appears. Meaning requires tension, something that calls you forward, something that asks something of you. Without that tension, life can become smooth but flat. Albert Camus approaches this from a different angle. In The Myth of Sisyphus, he describes the human confrontation with the absurd, the gap between our desire for meaning and a world that does not automatically provide it. Life can function smoothly while still feeling unanswered. Routine can continue without clarity. Camus argues that this tension is not a mistake. It is a condition of being human. Feeling lost is often the moment when routine stops distracting you from that tension. When progress no longer substitutes for purpose, the feeling is uncomfortable but revealing. It signals awareness. Camus suggests that once we recognize the absurd, we regain agency. Instead of waiting for meaning to appear, we participate in creating it. This shift is subtle but powerful. Daniel Gilbert adds another layer. In Stumbling on Happiness, he shows that humans are poor predictors of what will make them feel fulfilled. We imagine future satisfaction incorrectly. We assume stability will feel like contentment. We assume achievement will feel like resolution. We assume comfort will feel like happiness. But psychological research shows that expectation and experience diverge. You can build a life that looks correct and still feel internally misaligned. Feeling lost often emerges from this gap, not between success and failure, but between expectation and experience. Together, these 3 works describe the same phenomenon from different perspectives. Frankl explains the absence of meaning. Camus explains the confrontation with meaning. Gilbert explains the misprediction of meaning. When combined, they reveal something important. Feeling lost does not necessarily mean something is wrong. It often means awareness has increased. You begin to notice that functioning is not the same as fulfillment. Stability is not the same as direction. Achievement is not the same as meaning. Modern life can delay this realization. Structure keeps you busy. Metrics signal progress. Social comparison reinforces the idea that things are fine. But internal signals operate differently. They respond to alignment. When actions feel disconnected from values, disorientation appears. When progress lacks narrative, meaning the mind experiences drift. This is why people often feel lost during transitions, after reaching goals, during stable periods, after removing major problems. Because once urgency disappears, existential questions surface. What is this for? What matters now? What direction is mine, rather than expected? There is also a neurological element. The brain adapts quickly to stability. What once felt meaningful becomes normal. What once felt exciting becomes routine. Adaptation is useful for survival, but confusing for meaning. It can create the illusion that something is missing, when in reality, awareness has simply moved forward. Frankl would say the answer lies in responsibility. Meaning emerges when you commit to something beyond comfort. Camus would say the answer lies in conscious choice. Meaning emerges when you create value despite uncertainty. Gilbert would say the answer lies in experimentation. Meaning emerges through lived experience rather than prediction. Feeling lost is not always a signal to change everything. Sometimes it is a signal to reinterpret, to reconnect actions with values, to choose direction rather than assume it. There is also an important psychological shift. When life looks fine, external validation decreases urgency to question direction. This can delay meaning work, but the mind continues to seek coherence. The feeling of being lost is often the mind asking for narrative, not more activity. Narrative, a sense that actions connect to something larger than maintenance. This reframes the experience. Feeling lost is not weakness. It is feedback. It indicates that functioning has outpaced meaning. That progress has outpaced interpretation, and that interpretation is now required. Frankl reminds us, meaning can be found through contribution. Camus reminds us, meaning can be created through choice. Gilbert reminds us, meaning cannot be perfectly predicted in advance. Which leads to a practical insight. Clarity rarely appears before movement. It appears during movement. Direction emerges through engagement, not analysis alone. Small experiments often restore orientation faster than large life changes. Trying, adjusting, reflecting. This process gradually reconnects experience with meaning. The question then changes, not what is wrong with my life, but what is missing from my relationship to it. Where responsibility is unclear, meaning weakens. Where choice is avoided, agency weakens. Where experience is postponed, understanding weakens. Feeling lost often reflects one of these gaps. Responsibility, choice, experience. Addressing them gradually restores orientation, because the goal is not permanent certainty. It is ongoing alignment. Life looking fine does not mean life feels meaningful. Meaning requires interpretation, and interpretation requires attention. That was Why You Feel Lost Even When Life Looks Fine, explored through man's search for meaning, the myth of Sisyphus, and stumbling on happiness. Which perspective resonates most with you, Frankl, Camus, or Gilbert? Let us know in the comments. And subscribe to 10-minute books for ideas that help you understand not just how life works, but how it feels. Because stability answers how life runs, meaning answers why it matters.